Like I knew exactly how much we wanted to reach with the architects class in order to consider it a success.
Yeah.
And so because I had those metrics defined before we launched, it removed at least a little bit of the emotion of having to like let my baby go kind of thing.
Hey everyone, it's Chris G here, and I can't believe it's been another week and it's time for another episode of A Titan's Tale. And today I have Josh Sanabria. Did I say that right this time?
You did.
All
Hi,
right.
Chris.
I got Josh here with us today, and Josh is an entrepreneur and he's young compared to me, but that's great because we want to inspire empires. And Josh, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Chris. So I'm Josh Sanabria. I'm the CEO of Go Architect, and we are a urban planning and technology firm in Chicago, not too far from you.
All right.
We started in 2018, and it's been quite the journey to get to the exact product market fit, you could say, that we have now, but it's been an exciting journey and definitely plan to continue and keep growing.
Sure. I love Chicago. Used to be my sales territory back in the day.
Oh, it's a great city. Yeah.
Oh, so I have a. So you are an architect and you're an author too. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
Were you? You founded Go Architect back in 2016. Is that right?
2018. Yeah.
18. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So actually, so just so
How'd that all work?
for the funny thing is I'm not actually a licensed architect.
Okay.
So I work in the architecture field, but you know, the architecture field is very big. So
Hmm.
in 2018 when I was it was the right time to try something new. I had worked with some corporate firms and, made some contacts and kind of figured some things out and decided to take the leap in 2018. It, for better or for worse, I think for better, but we decided to focus on basically what's called facilities master planning. So it is a little tiny corner of the architecture world where we help organizations, school districts, municipalities basically plan for the next 10, 20 years of development. So we can help them ensure that their money is going towards what has the best possible impact for students, staff members, people that live in the city, all that kind of stuff. So it's a little tiny niche, but it's something that we've been able, at least I believe, to add a lot of value to.
So tell me when I've had the. I like starting businesses, and we've been having this discussion back and forth on do you niche down, do you go wide, or you go deep? And you
Right.
guys decided to go deep.
Very deep.
What
Yep.
what guided you that way? What do you
Yeah.
think made that decision?
It was a couple of things. So when I graduated with my master's in 2014, just by chance, when I started to work for architecture firms, I had just graduated from architecture school and, my first job's in architecture. Just by chance, I was teamed up with a project manager who was doing these types of projects. And it was a small firm, and basically it was just the two of us doing the entire thing. And maybe because he was also the project manager on other projects, that for the most part meant that I did this entire project.
Yeah.
And, these types of projects involve working with, let's say if you're a school district, it involves working with parents and having community meetings. It involves working with the principal or the superintendent. If there's, other architects involved for some reason, you guys have team meetings. So I kind of liked the team approach. It was very different than just, you design a single house for like one family and then that's it. This is kind of a long tail. It involves a lot of people. And then even though there is not I would say like the sexiness of designing a building, what you do does have impact literally for the next decade or two. So it's kind of cool to think about that and how that impacts a lot of kids or families or things like that. So it kind of happened by accident. I kept working on those projects, and then to be honest, I had a great boss, and he really wanted to push the envelope, and so I worked with him to do that. And then that's what eventually led me to think, okay, I can continue to, you know, move this niche in our world forward if I can invent new things and create new things. And probably one of the best ways to do that is to start my own firm and to, keep going with these projects. And so there was at least when I started Go Architect in 2018, there was a
Hmm.
little bit of a safety net to say, okay, I know how to do this one thing. And fortunately, I had a very good relationship with my previous, managers and bosses. And so
Yeah,
they were actually my first clients when I started the company.
nice.
And we were able to keep that relationship and keep it going. So it was a little bit of a safety net, a little bit of a kind of understanding that I had this expertise. But I'll tell you, we still made tons of mistakes and tried things that didn't work. So
That's
there's
part
a
of being
lot
an
of,
entrepreneur.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you think your boss pushed you out of the nest a little bit? Did he help? Did he help you in a way?
No,
No,
no, he definitely wanted me to stick around.
I
But,
hear you.
I think he understood that I wanted to try new things. And, in 2018, Go Architect was actually a book publishing company.
Hmm.
So we didn't even start, or I didn't even start it as a, urban planning firm or architecture firm. I
Right.
was hoping to, I was hoping to basically create books or find authors and, create partnerships with people who wanted to make books about architecture. And so even though
Yep.
I still did these projects on the side, they were
Right.
just the money makers, but the true vision was to do something else.
Yeah.
Um,
I understand.
and yeah, books are very hard. You have to sell tens of thousands of copies to break even, really. Well,
That's the
to break even on like, you know, the time for the author or the editor. And then to really make any profit, you have to sell, multi tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of copies, which we were never able to achieve. So it was a very it was a tough start, but
that's a
kept
hard
going.
market to get into. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it is.
we realized that publishing wasn't going to be your mainstay.
Right.
And now, did you make the leap by yourself, or do you have a partner?
So in the business itself, it's just me. I'm the only
Okay,
owner,
sure.
but I I tell this to a lot of people in that I had investors in air quotes.
Okay,
So one investor was my previous boss, essentially, who hired my company or me for a project not long after I left. So in a way, he invested in my success because he obviously
absolutely. He knew
knew I could
you,
do the
and
work, right? So
yep.
that was one investor. The second one is actually my wife. So my wife was in grad school and I was working. And so I was supporting her through grad school. And then when she graduated, basically we switched places. So I
Hmm.
started the business. And as you know, the first year, 2 years of business, you basically make no money anyway. So I earned basically nothing the first year. And she started to work and she supported the two of us. So even though she didn't literally invest in the money or anything like that, um,
Well, she
she
invested
was
in
part of
your,
the success.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it
Well,
was
so
part of the success.
absolutely.
Um,
So you have a team today?
yeah, so we are now a team of 3 or 4, depending on the needs, but 3 full-time people. Two of us work on kind of the architecture and planning side, and then we have a full-time software developer that makes a lot of our dreams come true.
Or
Yeah.
so are these the original three, or have you had to make tough choices along the way?
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, Thankfully, not too many, but we've had, people that have not lived up to expectations. It's particularly hard to find people who are good at marketing, I think,
Hmm.
um, who can consistently put out what they promise. That's been a little tough. But, I would say, fortunately, that has been very minimal. Our current team at this point, one of them has been with me for over 3 years. He was one of the first people I hired. The software developer is a little newer, but that's more because we've been only semi recently been able to afford a full-time person.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I've been actually overall very fortunate. And it helps that I have not sought to just hire kind of randomly. I've only really hired when I had a specific need or a specific project in mind, and then I sought the exact person to accomplish that. It wasn't so much that I hired just to like fill a position or to go after new work. I already had the work when I hired those people.
So did you outsource before when I mean, like contract jobs and stuff before
Yeah.
you were able to hire somebody new?
Yeah. A little bit of outsourcing, a lot of learning how to do things myself. I would say
Uh,
75% learning to do them myself and 25% outsourcing. But we've tried a lot of things because, as I mentioned, we got started with the books, and then
hmm.
that wasn't really working. And then we had this experiment literally right before COVID where we made a online class for an architect in Los Angeles. And then we sold his class for like $99 a pop.
Yeah.
And we had this, I would call it like a false positive. We sold a lot of classes. We sold like, $2,000 worth of classes in a day or something. And it was like, wow, that's the most we've ever done in a single day.
Right.
And so I got all excited. I was like, let's go make online classes. And then
Well,
and
well,
then
makes
COVID
sense.
hit.
Yeah.
COVID hit, so it was a little harder to film them for the beginning.
Mm,
But during 2020 to 2021, we filmed, produced, edited, and launched like 12 online classes. And some of them sold well, some of them did not. Yeah, we managed to make one relatively famous. Are you familiar with the show Forged in Fire by any
yes,
chance?
I
Yeah.
actually am.
Okay, so you know Ben Abbott, uh,
See that I
the
see it on
judge.
YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Abbott he was a winner who then became a judge, and
Hmm.
he's been a judge on that show for like 8 seasons or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, so the last two online classes we made are with Ben Abbott from Forged in Fire from the History Channel. So he was the most, I would say, like famous person that we collaborated with.
Yeah.
Actually, people can go to his classes. It's called billettoblade.com.
Well,
And his classes
for,
turned out so well.
for those who don't know what it is, it's basically knife making, right?
Yes. So it
And
is
go ahead.
forging from scratch. I mean,
Hmm.
from straight metal all the way to a beautiful finished knife with a
Hmm.
fancy handle and all that kind of stuff.
My cousin does that, and I like to do a lot of cooking.
Mm.
And he's showing these nice knives on his Facebook page. So I
Oh
reached out
yeah.
to him and said, "Hey, what would it cost to get a nice butcher knife? Because I wanted a big old butcher knife, like a 20
Sure.
inch." And he said, "I don't think you want to spend what I need, what I sell my knives for what you want to do."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he told me what they sell for. It's like, yeah, that's not quite going to be worth what I want
No.
to do. We're talking hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on how nice
Yeah.
and what it's made of. And but
Right.
so what you did was you went and you got hold of this guy and you made a class for him.
Right.
Did you market it too, or just make the class?
No, we did everything. So the classes with Ben were pretty unique. I essentially approached him as a partnership where he would have 75 or 25% of it and I would have 75% of it. And we would collaborate on the classes. and then he would use his, let's say famous, his
His
clout as a
right, right.
celebrity, right, to
Hmm.
market the classes on his Instagram and etc. And we went to knife shows and things like that too to sell the class. So I was in charge of production and kind of making it look polished. And then he was in charge of more of the marketing and that kind of
Sure.
side. So that was like a unique, co-venture. That was a completely separate thing than Go Architect, but we helped make it happen. And
Now, are you currently still doing that type of stuff? And as
no,
far
so
as
that was
classes go,
actually the last one.
okay.
Yeah, that was the best, and it was the last. And
Was it
then
kind of
yeah,
like a, so it's almost like a side hustle of Josh doing it on this? It wasn't his main. It wasn't your main. You
yeah,
probably use your resources, but it wasn't your main
yeah.
gig, I
It
guess.
was
So,
yeah, it was side. I guess in retrospect, it was side. At the time, we were still figuring out whether some form of publishing could work. And so it was, can we publish, can we publish online classes instead of books? So it was
gotcha.
the very, very last kind of, send off for that idea. Um, but it still has a special place in my heart, I guess.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that's a neat story.
yeah,
So I know you've done some other stuff. You had some other software. So you evolved
yeah,
your current Go Architect into more than just. Kind of explain that to me, how you guys
yeah,
got to that point and what you have, obviously.
sure.
And I know one's Engage, but I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, of course. So I think what kind of the lesson all this is that we tried the publishing in 2018, 19, 20, and really part of 21.
Hmm.
But during that whole time we were also doing these facility plans, these urban plans for other clients. And somewhere in 2021 I kind of had this like you know come to my reality moment where I was like, well, the only thing that's really working well is the architecture work. We're able to do good work, we get clients to talk about it, and we get new clients pretty easily.
Hmm.
So what if we just took the effort that we're placing in books and online classes and publishing and all this stuff, and we just apply that effort to the architecture work and try to get more of it
And grow that. Yeah, that's a
and
good
grow
idea.
that. And
Yeah.
part of me was hesitant. You have the kind of sunk cost fallacy, all of that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? No, let's give it a try. So in 2021, basically that's what happened. I just pushed to see if we could get a lot more projects in that area,
Hmm.
and it worked. And so 2021, or sorry, 2022, we had, twice as many projects as the year before. And in 2023, we had twice as many projects as 2022. And now we have maybe not twice, but we're like, I don't know, 60% higher than last year. So it's like that clearly is what's working. And so it's like, okay, how can we support that? And so part of supporting that is fixing some of the issues that we've noticed now working with. We are in our 21st master plan now. So, 21 plans later, what have we learned from those 20 different clients? And Engage was created out of that. So I can explain that if you want, like what Engage is.
Sure. Actually, I kind of know what I want to think. When I saw what Engage was, I thought of something that we used to do,
Mm.
and I'm you're taking it to the next level. So yes, please explain that.
So so Engage at a basic level is a free software tool where you can create surveys with digital sticky notes. And the reason that's important is we've had a lot of community meetings where you have to print out a board and go to the meeting and give people sticky notes, and then they write their comments and they put the sticky notes on the board. Now,
Hmm.
that has worked for, many, many years, and it's fine, but it does have some challenges. For one, you have to print out the board and drive to the meeting. You have to hope that people write their sticky notes in, legible script so you can actually read it later.
Never thought
It
about that one.
doesn't,
That's right. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
What happens if their English is not so good, right? We work with communities who speak a lot of Spanish.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of question of what you do about bilingual. And then even let's assume all of that goes well. What do you actually do with the sticky notes? Do you give it to an intern to type up? Do you just take a photo of the board? Like, what exactly happens to the feedback that you gather, even if everything goes perfectly?
Hmm.
And so we noticed these challenges over and over again. And I was like, why don't we just create a software where we can take this same physical activity, but make it digital? And so that's pretty much exactly what Engage is. You can create a sticky notes activity. You can send this survey link to hundreds or thousands of people at once. People can place their different color sticky notes on the image where they want to place it. They can type it up in any language they want, and then they submit their survey response. And
Hmm.
you, as the creator, can see all of the survey dots come in at once. They come in live, so you could even do it in person, like have it on a projector screen and everyone's doing their sticky notes and they can see it right away on the board on the projector screen. So it basically just solves all of the challenges that we have faced ourselves with our own community engagement projects or responsibilities that we have. And so we created that last year. I think it launched in like October 1st. And then we opened it up to the world. And so people can go to engagebygo.com and they can
Hmm.
sign up and test it out and hopefully use it for their own projects.
Um, are you using any AI with that?
So there is an AI summary tool
Okay.
where if you get responses, the AI will do its best to summarize things in like a bullet point manner.
Hmm.
We'll probably add more things later, but we're still figuring out how to make it as accessible and fast and just
It's
popular as
awesome because when I read that, I was thinking, what? You're a very bright young man here. Um, because we used to do post-it notes, and then you're always going to have people who duplicate or say something very similar
possible.
comment, and then you had to, all right, so we're going to take this and we're going to put them in categories, and then,
Yeah,
okay, well, this is a duplicate, so we're going to get rid of that one, so everybody's, and it's a process,
it is.
and
Yeah,
then, and obviously, the more ideas, the better, and we
right,
can only allow so many people in a room for us. So you have opened it up to a wide range of people, and I never thought about. Well, it is difficult. Sometimes you can't read somebody's handwriting,
right.
and you mentioned somebody else's um, language. Does the system automatically convert it to the language you need to have it in?
Yeah, so that's actually the feature that we're working on right now. So as it stands, you can take it, export it, and then have it translated or
Hmm.
stick it to a translator. But we're building in basically the auto translate so you can just have it ready to go in whatever language you want. Even if you wanted to like convert it into Spanish or into a different
Sure.
language, you'll do that.
So others could see what others had said. That's
Correct. Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a journey to figure that one out, but we're trying to spread the word about it.
Was your decision to focus on? Do you think it was a financial decision, or what gave you the aha moment that maybe I ought to take my resources and focus on one thing? Was
Hmm.
it like you have a, was there something that said, your wife said, honey, you got to do something? Or was it like you're looking at the financials thinking, what's going on? Or did you have or you're reading a book and all of a sudden, voila? Because that's happened to me before. It's like somebody else, I
Uh,
reading the book from somebody else, and then like, I wish I thought of that. Let's make this happen.
right. I think it was two different factors. The
Hmm.
first was in 2021, we had just made our, let's say, 11th or so class. And the class was with a fairly famous architecture firm who had won something called the Pritzker Prize, which is the highest level prize in architecture.
Hmm.
And so we made a class with this group, and it was well produced. It had relatively famous people in the architecture world in it, things like that. And so when we made this class, before it was public, I thought to myself, okay, this is a, class that has taken us a year and a half to make, not necessarily to produce, but we've had to build up our reputation. They've had to see that we've worked with other people. They would not have taken my call a year ago when we were just starting. So I was like, this is the type of class that I think we could make. We can't afford to go get Samuel L. Jackson and pay him,
Hmm.
$50,000 off the bat, and, you know, Serena Williams and pay her $200,000 on the bat. Like, we can't compete with Masterclass and some of the big online class makers.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, if this is the maximum that we could probably make, can we make this class a success? And if it's not a financial success and we can't get enough sales or attention around it, I think it's time to try something else, because all we would be doing is trying to fix the same problem with the same solution.
Yeah.
So that was like, I think that was in like September or something. And we launched the class, and it basically answered the question for us. It sold okay, but it did not sell enough to cover its production costs, cover the marketing costs, and then make profit so that we could grow the business and make another class and pay ourselves and all these types of things.
Hmm.
So in many ways, that specific class answered everything definitively. So at that same time, I was working with Ben Abbott, the Forge and Fire guy,
Hmm.
to produce his class. And so immediately we switched strategies. Instead of launching his class and kind of doing it under our umbrella, we used to have this website called designclass.com. So that's where all of the classes were. Instead of putting it under designclass.com, I said, no, let's do this as a partnership where you have a percentage, I have a percentage, and we'll launch it on your own platform, only about bladesmithing and only about your topic, and let's keep it separate. And then actually eventually um, Ben Abbott bought out our ownership of Billet to Blade. So Ben Abbott is now the sole owner of that series of classes and the website and all those assets.
Hmm.
So in this case, we were a, let's say, production house with him, but we had already moved on from producing classes.
Gotcha.
So basically, that was the answer. And I'm not sure this works for everyone, but I think in general, the principle of having kind of a line in the sand and having specific metrics for that line, like I knew exactly how much we wanted to reach with the architects class in order to consider it a success.
Yeah.
And so because I had those metrics defined before we launched, it removed at least a little bit of the emotion of having to like let my baby go kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, Even though that's what we ended up having to do. So I would suggest people have specific metrics. And then on the flip side, the second reason was we just kept getting architecture work. We kept winning those projects. And so it was also kind of clear where, we're spending hundreds of hours filming these classes to get new classes, but our architecture projects are essentially doing a lot of the marketing for us because other clients see them and then come to us organically. I'm not necessarily having to chase them down. So the pipeline for that service was just so much better, like clearly so much better than the alternative. So it was also kind of like a no-brainer um, to just try something new. But that didn't remove, I would be honest, that did not remove the emotions of having to kill off the publishing and the books and the online classes. That was a little painful.
I hear you because you had a dream and you're acknowledging that maybe that dream's not right now what needs to happen.
Hmm.
And it's not saying in the future. Look at me. I'm here today doing a podcast, and I had a dream back in 2011 about going and speaking on stage.
Mm,
And there are a lot of things, reasons not to. And I made
sure,
the right decision not to. I wasn't ready quite yet.
sure.
And today I've got a lot more experience in certain areas that I can speak about.
Yeah,
And we're going to try. I've hired a branding associate to help me move out to that. And um,
nice.
so if you have a dream someday, you might be a publisher someday. Just might take a while. Might take 15 years. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it won't be with architecture related books,
Yeah, it might not be. So actually, you did say something earlier when before we started the recording. You've wrote some books,
Yeah.
but they're children's books. Is that right?
Yeah, I wrote a kid's book called Norman's Architecture Adventure,
Yeah.
wrote and illustrated.
Was that a dream of yours, or is that something? What what drove that? I guess.
That one was partially for fun. I I actually wrote and illustrated that mostly on my lunch breaks while working for my previous employer.
Hmm.
I would just take lunch and bring out my iPad and sketch and draw the different scenes from the book. So a lot of people knew that I was working on it. And honestly, it was just fun. It's kind of inspired by one of my friends who I graduated college with. And it was kind of, it was a way to get started. Kids' books are obviously a very popular, let's say, subset of publishing.
Sure.
So, it was kind of an idea to get started maybe with a kid's book and get started there, or have it launch the company. For that one, we tried a Kickstarter campaign to
Yeah.
fund kind of an initial run of printing. So honestly, that one was a little bit of fun, a little bit of a kickstart for the company, and
I'm a
I
learning.
have a lot of friends, so
Sure.
people that I bought most were friends.
That's all right.
Yeah,
That's a learning experience for you.
yeah, it was
And
good. I would definitely do another kids book, even if like I never got into publishing again. I I would definitely do another kids book. It was fun.
you got your group, your team.
Yeah,
How do you decide now where to go with your business? How to grow your business? I mean, obviously you
yeah,
got the work coming in,
yeah,
but technology is always changing, and you're
yeah.
adding to your engage. How do y'all make those decisions?
So a lot of it depends, I think, on whether we want to, double down and do more of the projects we have or innovate and we'll say spread out the projects a little bit.
Hmm.
So we're trying a little bit of option two. So with Engage, we are adding value, hopefully, to the projects that we already are getting. So we've added value in the community engagement section of those projects.
Hmm.
And now we're looking to add value in another section. So right now we're exploring the financial analysis kind of portion of our projects, and we're seeing if we can create a piece of software that helps us be more efficient or just better for the end user. So I think we'll continue to try that, add to the portfolio of software that can improve our service business. The service business makes all of the money. Engage doesn't make any money. Hopefully one day it will. I mean, we
Maybe
do
you can do
have
the
like a
advertising. It's free, so maybe you'll get enough users that
right.
people want to advertise.
At least with our own types of clients, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to grow that. You know, with the service side, there's a couple things that we've done. So, we started off only working with really one partner on that in 2018. Now, 6 years ish later, we have what, like we have five partners that we work with on those types of projects. We've
Hmm.
managed to add basically a partner every year. So I'm looking to, keep that going, obviously retain the partnerships that we do have, add others strategically and as they become available. So I think it's a little bit of both. And then, I think part of it too is we work in a niche that is so specific that it's not necessarily something that you just fall into, I guess.
Yeah.
And we do have the advantage at this point. We have worked on over 20 of these types of projects, and with all scales, small cities all the way to super large school districts. I mean, we've worked on a good scale. And so I think it's the type of thing where our position does strengthen the more that we do. And we learn how to work with different people, different communities, different needs. And I would like to see that continue, where we can just overall improve the value of even the simplest elements of our services. So, yeah.
In your niche, is there any repeat business or is it all new business?
So it kind of depends, but it does repeat. So these plans that we've made for these, organizations,
Hmm.
you can, in some respects, they're a snapshot in time. What did we plan to do in 2020? And let's say now we're in 2025. What have we accomplished from that plan? Should we amend or change anything? And then what are we doing now from 2025 to 2030? So you can almost think of it as like every 5, 6 years, a client wants to kind of take another look. Not necessarily redo everything. Obviously, that would be kind of
Right.
wasteful, but just to kind of refresh, make sure their community needs still align. Obviously, things like COVID changed a lot. So like anything that was made pre-COVID has at least some adjustments that are necessary. A lot of our work also depends on where people are moving, like physically where they are immigrating to internally,
Hmm.
domestic immigration.
Sure.
So you have things like, the state of Texas, for example, growing rapidly in general, the
In
Southwest.
different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
The Southwest in general is growing. People are moving there because the land is cheaper. They can buy a house for 150K, as opposed to some places in California
Right.
or, northern.
600,000 or a million. Yeah. It depends on what it is. Yeah.
Right, huge difference, right? So if you're a family of 2 or 3 kids, you probably don't live in certain areas. And so you're moving to different states or at least different parts of the state. For example, even in California, a micro example is that communities on the coast in general are getting older and people are moving kind of inland more towards the mountains or deserts. So you find those
Hmm.
kind of large, we'll say large, well, even that the large family term has changed a lot. A large family now is like 2 or 3 kids, as opposed
Sure.
to maybe 5 kids back in the day, right?
Right. Right.
But large families are now moving westward and southward, even in the state. And so all of the like new schools, new communities, suburban development, all of that is happening in these kind of southern belt areas of the state. And for better or for worse, those areas need water, they need trees, they need all these services, schools. And so there's a lot of work to kind of what is that area going to look like in the next 10, 20 years?
Right.
Um, who knows? We'll
I
see.
know.
Like we're part of it at least, try to figure it out.
I guess one final question, but it
Yeah.
kind of goes back to where we started with this podcast. So, does your wife think she made a good investment?
Yes. Yes,
Well, good for her.
definitely.
Good for
Yeah.
her.
No, she's very supportive. I think
Yep.
it was important to marry somebody who knew that I wanted to take my, skills and try my own thing. So I think that was
Hmm.
really one. She was able to support us financially for, the first 3 years as kind of we figured
Hmm.
it out and only were able to contribute, a certain amount. So I
Sure.
think that patience, and it's, I think in the grander scheme now, like having your own business doesn't mean you work less hours, but it does mean that you can work those hours in different times. And so I'm able to be more flexible and, just take care of things during the middle of the day that maybe I wouldn't be able to take care of if I were, in the office, and I can
Sure.
work at nights. I actually prefer to work in the evenings anyway. So I don't know, it does offer a certain flexibility that is hard to achieve with a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So I actually really have come to enjoy that flexibility and, things like that. So,
I like to
yeah.
joke that my family thinks I don't work. Well, they understand I do work, but it's just different. It's different, you
Yeah.
know. I'm not tied to. I'm my own boss and get to do what I want.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. So you be a
Yes, you
slave
definitely
to
have to
yourself.
be
Yeah,
motivated.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I mentioned earlier you look younger than you are,
Mm.
but you've been my youngest guest,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
give me a
cool.
different. You give me a different way of you actually went out, started your own business at a young age, and have grown it and continue to grow. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And that's why we're inspiring empires here at the Titan's Tale. All right. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next week on our next episode of the Titan's Tale.
Thanks, Chris.